Welcome to another episode where we delve deep into contemporary issues of global significance. Today, we're venturing into a topic that's been making headlines, yet remains shrouded in secrecy and intrigue. This is a story of power, influence, and violence. A story that's unfolding right before our eyes: the surge of Russian mercenaries in West Africa. Imagine an influx of foreign soldiers, not under the banner of any official military force, but operating under the radar, their actions and motivations cloaked in uncertainty. These are not just any soldiers, they are Russian mercenaries, their presence in West Africa growing at an alarming rate. The key player? A shadowy organization known as the Wagner Group, linked to the Kremlin and implicated in acts of violence across the African continent. But why are they there? What's their goal? And what does this surge mean for the people of West Africa, and indeed for the world at large? In this video, we'll explore these questions and more. We'll delve into the origins of these mercenaries, their operations, and the impact they're having on local communities. We'll also look at the future implications of this growing presence. So, buckle up as we embark on this journey into the heart of a new era of foreign intervention in West Africa, starting with the rise of Russian mercenaries. Shocking as it may sound, the presence of Russian mercenaries in West Africa has increased by a staggering 300% over the last 5 years. A seismic shift in the landscape of foreign intervention, one that's raising eyebrows and red flags across the globe. But who are these shadowy figures? And why has their presence surged so dramatically? The key player in this unfolding saga is the Wagner Group, a Russian paramilitary organization that's been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Spearheaded by Yevgeny Prigozhin, a man whose name has become synonymous with covert military operations, the group has been implicated in myriad violent acts across the African continent. This is not a band of rogue soldiers. The ties that bind the Wagner Group to the Kremlin are both deep and troubling. The United Nations, in a damning report, has linked the Wagner Group to a horrific massacre in the village of Moura in Mali. The attack, carried out in March of 2022, resulted in the deaths of hundreds of civilians. Witnesses reported seeing armed men, speaking a foreign language, working hand in hand with the Malian military. The Wagner Group, it seems, had a hand in this brutal act of violence. Prigozhin's presumed death in a plane crash has cast a shadow of uncertainty over the future of the Wagner Group. Yet the Kremlin's order for Wagner fighters to pledge allegiance to Russia suggests a continued and deep-rooted connection. The rise of Russian mercenaries in West Africa is not a simple tale of foreign intervention. It's a complex, tangled web of power, influence, and violence that's only just beginning to unravel. A new era of foreign intervention in West Africa has begun, but what triggered this influx of Russian mercenaries? To understand the present, we must delve into the past. In the annals of modern warfare, the name Wagner Group has come to hold a chilling resonance. This shadowy Russian paramilitary organization, led by the now presumed dead Yevgeny Prigozhin, has its roots deeply buried in the tumultuous soil of Eastern Europe. Formed amidst the conflict-ridden backdrop of Ukraine, the Wagner Group cut its teeth on the battlefield, honing the brutal tactics that would later be exported onto African soil. The Wagner Group's operations in Ukraine were a testing ground of sorts, a place where they could refine their methodology and tactics. But it was their subsequent move to Africa that truly marked their ascension into the global spotlight. Their presence in the continent, initially veiled in secrecy, has now become a matter of international concern. In Africa, the Wagner Group found a new theater for their operations. Their involvement, particularly in the Central African Republic and Mali, has been marked by a chilling disregard for human rights and a propensity for violence that has left communities devastated. They've been implicated in atrocities that the United Nations has condemned as potential war crimes and crimes against humanity. But the Wagner Group's future hangs in a balance of uncertainty. The presumed death of their leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, in a plane crash, has left many speculating about the group's future. Prigozhin was not merely the group's leader, but its driving force, the man whose vision and influence shaped the Wagner Group's operations and its controversial tactics. The death of Prigozhin raises questions about the future of the Wagner Group. Will his absence lead to its disintegration, or will it simply spur the rise of a new leader, ready to continue the group's legacy of violence and disruption? Only time will tell. With a past steeped in violence and controversy, the Wagner Group has found a new playground in West Africa. West Africa has become the new frontier for these Russian mercenaries. As we delve into the operations of the Wagner Group, we find ourselves in the heart of West Africa, specifically in Mali and the Central African Republic. The Wagner Group, a shadowy paramilitary organization, has been implicated in numerous violent military operations across these regions. One of the most horrific instances was the massacre in the village of Moura in Mali. Around 500 unarmed civilians lost their lives in this atrocity, carried out in March 2022. Witnesses reported seeing armed white men speaking a foreign language, presumably Russian, collaborating with the Malian military during the attack. The United Nations has since condemned the massacre as potential war crimes and crimes against humanity, pinpointing the Wagner Group's involvement. However, the Moura massacre is but one instance of the group's operations in West Africa. The Central African Republic has also been a stage for their controversial tactics. Human rights abuses and destabilization are common themes in the narrative of the Wagner Group's African operations. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the presumed leader of the Wagner Group, was a significant figure in these operations. His involvement extended beyond military tactics and into the realms of mining and energy industries, drawing criticism for exploitation and lack of tax payments. Despite Prigozhin's presumed death in a plane crash, the Wagner Group's influence continues to linger. The Kremlin has ordered the group's fighters to pledge allegiance to Russia, indicating that the operations in West Africa may not cease anytime soon. The Wagner Group's operations paint a grim picture of foreign interference and violence in West Africa. Yet, it is important to remember that these actions do not occur in a vacuum. They are part of a larger geopolitical strategy with far-reaching impacts on local communities and the global balance of power. Their operations in West Africa have far-reaching impacts, especially on local communities. The presence of Russian mercenaries in West Africa is not just a political issue, but a humanitarian crisis. The actions of the Wagner Group, the Russian paramilitary organization, have had a profound and devastating impact on local communities. The violence they bring with them does not discriminate. It affects everyone. In the village of Moura, Mali, for instance, their involvement in a massacre led to the untimely death of hundreds of unarmed civilians, a bloody stain on the region's history. These actions, the UN condemns as potential war crimes and crimes against humanity. But the repercussions go beyond the immediate horrifying violence. The fear and chaos sown by such events lead to a ripple effect, destabilizing not just individual communities, but entire regions. When local governments are undermined by foreign military forces, their ability to protect and provide for their citizens is compromised. This disruption creates a power vacuum, often filled by those with the most guns, rather than those with the best interests of the community at heart. Furthermore, the economic impact cannot be overlooked. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the now deceased leader of the Wagner Group, had vested interests in African mining and energy sectors. His operations, however, drew criticism for exploitation and for contributing little to the local economies, an issue that compounds the existing economic challenges these communities face. The presence of these mercenaries also affects the continent's geopolitical landscape. It incites fear in neighboring countries and strains diplomatic relations, as seen in the case of the Sahel countries neighboring Mali, which countries saw a spate of coups raising fear among the governments of neighboring ECOWAS member states. The impact of the Wagner Group's operations on West Africa is both deep and wide-ranging, affecting everything from individual lives to the geopolitical balance of power. These actions have sown the seeds of instability, violence, and economic hardship, leaving deep scars on the communities that bear the brunt of their operations. The rise of Russian mercenaries in West Africa has vast implications for the future of the region. The future of West Africa hangs in the balance as Russian mercenaries continue to increase their presence. The implications of this burgeoning issue are manifold and far-reaching. with potential for significant changes in the geopolitical landscape. Firstly, the international community is likely to respond to this unsettling development. Condemnations have already started pouring in, with the United Nations classifying the atrocities committed by the Wagner Group as potential war crimes and crimes against humanity. But words alone may not suffice. The international community may feel compelled to intervene more directly, potentially escalating the situation and leading to increased violence in the region. Secondly, the rise of Russian mercenaries in West Africa could exacerbate instability. The Wagner Group, already implicated in the massacre of hundreds of civilians in Mura, Mali, could potentially carry out more such brutal acts. This escalation in violence could further destabilize the region, leading to a vicious cycle of retaliation and fear. Thirdly, there are long-term impacts on local communities to consider. The presence of foreign mercenaries often leads to an increase in human rights abuses, as has already been seen in various parts of Africa. Communities may find themselves caught in the crossfire, their lives and livelihoods disrupted. Additionally, the mercenaries' involvement in local industries, such as mining and energy, can lead to exploitation and a lack of tax revenue, further impoverishing these communities. On a broader scale, the rise of these mercenaries could signal a shift in Russia's foreign policy. With the presumed death of Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner Group, the future of the group and its operations remains uncertain. This could potentially lead to a power vacuum, with other Russian military contractors keen to expand their presence on the continent. The implications of this are still unclear and could add another layer of complexity to the situation. The rise of Russian mercenaries in West Africa is a complex issue with far-reaching implications, and it's a story that is still unfolding. The international community, the local populations, and indeed the rest of the world, will be closely watching as this narrative continues to evolve. Now, to enjoy more free content like this, or even make suggestions for content you would like us to create, please help us grow our channel by subscribing. Also share the video. Thank you.